Alright, YouTube, I thought I'd weigh in on the Charlie Charlie challenge, which is currently spreading like wildfire across the internet as people become convinced that drawing yes and no on a piece of paper and putting a couple of pencils on it performs some sort of dark occult ritual and summons, depending on who you ask, either summons a demon, spirit, child thing from Mexico, which maybe there's such a tradition in Mexican culture, I don't know, or else summons the mind of Charles Manson, who then manipulates the pencils on the piece of paper with his wizardly powers. And I'm seeing both variants. Oftentimes, what you get with one of these things, with an urban legend or something, is that if it does become viral, it quickly branches out into several different variants fairly quickly. I'm sure that some here, probably those that are of the age group that I generally associate with my own content, people who would be roughly my age or slightly younger, older, or something, those that would be in those age ranges are probably more familiar with the Bloody Mary story. And as for any, I guess this video, because of the tags, might attract younger viewers, so I should probably explain. This is basically the same thing as Bloody Mary. And Bloody Mary is an old urban legend, a classic tale of a young girl that gets killed, sometimes in an auto wreck, sometimes in other ways, and there are several different names associated with the same general figure. And the idea of this game for Bloody Mary or similar games was you would go into your bedroom at night. When you'd turn the lights off, you might have a candle or a flashlight, otherwise it's just dark. And you'd look into the mirror and you'd spin around saying Bloody Mary. In some variants you spin around, in others you don't have to, you just look into the mirror. And you'd say Bloody Mary, and usually you say it 3, 5, or 10 times. Depends on who you ask, sometimes more. And then you would stare intently into your own face in the mirror, and it would slowly be replaced by the face of Bloody Mary. And then you had to turn the lights on, or else she would crack through the window and enter the physical world and attack you, causing, madness or possession or something, I guess. It was never quite clear. It was sort of the golden arm thing, too. If you ever heard the story of the golden arm, basically a girl, or sometimes a Civil War soldier, it's not clear, loses one of their limbs, they get a replacement made of metal or gold or something, and then you tell somebody the story, and then the idea is that you tell them afterwards, you say, now that I've told you the story, if you don't believe it, you'll be visited in your sleep tonight. And you'll hear this moaning spirit coming for its arm or leg or whatever it was. There's a similar story with a sash, where a girl has been beheaded and her head is held on by a silk sash, and her lover finally convinces her to let him remove it after not letting him do so for a very long time, and her head falls off. And then, of course, he dies, usually of fright, and then you're supposed to, if you hear the story again, if you don't believe it, you get possessed or something. There are a lot of these different spooky urban legends around. But the idea that drawing yes and no on a piece of paper and calling out Charlie, Charlie, are you here, or whatever, with a couple pencils there, the idea that that causes possession or summons a demon has its roots in absolutely no magical tradition whatsoever. And the funny thing is, I've seen several fundamentalists sort of warning against this, or saying it's upsetting, it's demonic, or there's something sinful about it. But in Christian tradition, this is being referred to as a Mexican child demon. Now, this appears to conflate the idea of a ghost with the idea of a demon, but they're not the same thing within Judeo-Christian mythology. Now, if you go back to the pagan times, they're referred to as the same thing. The Greeks used the term daimon to denote both. They would say it was a daimon, whether it's a ghost or what a Christian would consider a demonic, a malevolent spirit that's not a human. But in Christian tradition, they're two totally separate things. A person doesn't die and become a demon. If they die and become a ghost, that's different. Usually the Christians don't believe in the ghosts either. So I'm not seeing exactly why anybody would be afraid of this when it's quite clearly the same exact style of urban legend as Bloody Mary. It's also similar to the idea of a Ouija board. A lot of people still believe that Ouija boards are occult objects that cause possession, or that cause people to go mad, or that cause ghosts to arrive, or poltergeists or something. And that's just not true. That's just not the way the world works. It's the same with tarot cards, or magical orbs, or wands, or crystals, or occult books, or anything like that. None of these particular objects can be used in that manner. If you're talking in the terms of the most literal occultists, they would claim the only way you're going to be raising any sort of spirit is after potentially days of ritual work that are extremely precise. You have to take note of what phase the moon's in, what time of day you're doing it, what time of year potentially. You have to do a whole lot of mathematics in order to get it to work. You have to have very precise clothing, very precise personal hygiene and behavior, even a specific diet in many cases. That's for the most literal occultists, the sort of high magic sort of ritualists. The idea of doing something like this would be completely and utterly absurd. Even those of us who believe in the occult, but we practice it from a more energetic perspective. I do it with a mind to theoretical physics, and I do it with a mind to the idea of the natural world and things like that. Others have other opinions. But no, there's no way you're going to be raising a demon through this method. It simply will not work, because what you're doing is simply a parlor game. Again, much like the Ouija board. Now, could you, like, infuse a Ouija board or a piece of paper with occult energy? Maybe. Why would I bother experimenting with such a thing? Maybe, but I mean, these kids aren't performing black mass ceremonies and sacrificing animals, or going out to the graveyard and digging up skeletons to use in rituals or something. They're simply taking a piece of paper and putting 2 pencils on it. My thought is anyone getting freaked out by this, probably they balanced one pencil on the other, and naturally, over time, one of the pencils falls very slightly and happens to roll to the side, and everyone gets freaked out and thinks that it's, this horrific nightmare demon that's coming to possess them. But it's exactly the same as the Bloody Mary story, quite literally. They're very much alike. They've got the same aspect to them, the cautionary message and all. I thought that the idea of it being Charles Manson doing it was even funnier than the Mexican demon child or ghost or whatever it is, because Manson is currently in his cell, very, very bored potentially, and looking for love, apparently getting ready to get married and stuff. And I think his telekinesis days may be behind him. I don't think that he's into the witchy stuff so much anymore. But yes, the Charlie challenge, or whatever you want to call it, it's a bunch of hokum. I can say that with absolute certainty. I would make a video where I'm actually doing it, but I don't really need to make a 10-minute video of me just sitting there staring and chewing a piece of beef jerky slowly as I look into the camera with a piece of paper on my lap and a couple pencils. So that's just not necessary. So yeah, urban legend, I guess interesting one for those who are doing it, but you're really freaking yourself out over nothing. If you want to practice actual magic, just, go and find a grimoire or something. Go and find an actual spell book and practice those rituals if you want to. Not going to hurt you any potentially, so just do that, learn some magical theory, or get a pack of tarot cards, because they're more interesting than this sort of thing. And they're also cheap if you get them on eBay. Disclaimer, if you're under 18, you need your parents' permission or what the fuck ever. But yeah, my thoughts on the Charlie challenge. I thought that was pretty funny. just about as funny as when people still try to tell me that the Ouija board caused them to be possessed, and I say, nope. You're psychologically unbalanced and you're acting possessed because you got some underlying mental issue, because that's not what Ouija boards do. It's a Parker Brothers game. It's a cardboard thing, a cardboard slab with a little, triangular thing with a little looking glass in the middle of it. It has no occult powers whatsoever. Same, again, as a pack of tarot cards. But at least with that, you can, learn how to do it, and you can sort of entertain your friends and burn some incense and have some wind chimes in your room and some quartz crystals or something. It's really cool. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fun. But, as far as summoning demons and stuff like that, no, you're not going to be able to accomplish it through any of these methods. That's just not the way that the world works. If that were the way that summoning demons worked, we'd be living in some weird fantasy anime or something by now. There'd be spells flying everywhere, people flying around shooting fireballs at each other. Well, unfortunately, I would say, in my opinion, unfortunately, that's not the kind of world that we live in. It'd be nice if it were like a Harry Potter sort of world, but it's not. The occult takes a little more effort than that, unfortunately. That's about all. Peace out.